Coffee time again, exposing the truth. Welcome to Coffee Time Again, exposing the truth. Dale at the microphone, the show that demonstrates how history repeats itself. He digs into the past, shows what happens, and how it is happening now. Follow the path of history to where it goes, then relate it to today to reveal the connections. The culture that forgets its history has no future. A history buff and loves to talk about it, going back as far as ancient Greeks and Egyptians and beyond. So grab your coffee, your chair, and listen to the show. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, America and the world. I hope you're in fine shape today. I know America is not doing too well, and I know the world's in a lot of trouble. They better be careful. Anyway, today's show is in now there we go, forgetting what I'm supposed to be doing. Today's show is coffee time again, where we expose the truth. And today we're exposing the truth with Kimberly. And she is going to talk to us now and tell us what she's about and what's going on. And then we'll carry on a conversation, just a straight conversation to see what's happening and what she's doing and what we can do to help her. So, welcome to the show, Kimberly. Tell us about yourself.
Well, Dale, thank you so much for having me on your show. Globe Aware, which is an organization I founded about 25 years ago now, I can't believe it's been so long, really taps into that great American tradition of ordinary people rolling up their sleeves like they've done with churches and Habitat for Humanity and Alcoholics Anonymous and so on, to solve problems without waiting on a government or Washington to do it. Our volunteers really don't sit back and say someone should fix this. They're really the solution. And so we do everything from game counts in Zimbabwe for wildlife conservation. We build homes, we install concrete floors, all sorts of different projects. And it really just comes down to private citizens being willing to roll up their sleeves and be a part of a service project. And again, I really see us following in the tradition of so many other great organizations before us. Catholic Charities has done so much in terms of housing and refugee aid. I think if you look at volunteer firefighter brigades around our country, or even there are so many churches, and the Salvation Army itself, which, gosh, it's from the 1800s, which has repeatedly mobilized volunteers and private donations to provide everything from food, shelter, emergency relief during natural disasters, often faster and more flexibly than anything any other agency can do. So that's really what we are about, is providing those connection and service opportunities for private citizens to do. And I have to say, our volunteers pay for the projects that they do around the world, but it is, and they're usually around $1,200, and it covers everything. And it's a tax deduction. So there's kind of a nice, although perhaps unnecessary, tax incentive to serve and travel in this way. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Okay, so you're not a nonprofit organization, then
We are.
you
We
are.
are. We're a 501c3. We also have Canadian charity status. So our
Okay,
volunteers come from North America, from the United States and Canada.
okay. But
Yeah.
the participants pay some of the costs themselves out of their pockets.
They actually pay all of it. So when they pay $1,200 for a week serving on one of our event, what we call adventures in service, that money pays for their food, their accommodations, their medical insurance, their project materials, their bilingual coordinator who's there with them throughout the project, the foreman, and our teams are about 10 people. And again, these are private citizens. They might be church groups, school groups, families traveling together. Um, I'll give you an example. We might have a family that wants to go to Romania and work with special needs kids there. And so we will put in a sensory garden. And often it comes from a place where you have a connection or knowledge to whatever that need is. In terms of what you're doing. So, yeah, the funds come exclusively from private citizens. We have no government funding whatsoever. We don't receive funds from any kind of grant or foundation outside of someone's family foundation.
Mhm.
And there's sometimes, actually quite often, employers that will do contribution matching. So
Mhm.
that if, say, someone works for Amazon, they'll often match up to $600 or $1,000 toward a charitable organization like Globe Aware. And so that makes the cost of participating half for the volunteer. And then, of course, they get a tax write off on the other half. So we see it as a win win win. The private citizen gets a tax incentive for doing this good work. Um, and the employer, often it's a great way of retaining employees by allowing them to give in a way they want to give instead of forcing
Mhm.
something on them. And of course, whatever community we serve gets the benefits of our work wherever we're going. So we like to see it as a win win win, very private um, way and not a large scale government way of people coming together to work on things that are important to them.
Okay,
Although we do fun things too.
you do. What about the government on the other end? How do they react?
So it varies, and there are places we don't serve for any number of reasons. For example, we're not in Somalia, Darfur, Afghanistan, China. There are many places we don't go for all sorts of reasons, and safety, of course, is very important for us. Um, we have to be able to work in communities where we can do things without going through lots of government hoops. It's really got to be privately led. The community has to want us there, and we are trying not to create dependence on us. So when we are working on something, um, the idea is that we're helping provide independence. So that might mean, like in Cambodia, we're assembling wheelchairs for landmine victims. They're usually children that
Mhm.
get hit, that walk over landmines, and so it gives them some mobility that they wouldn't otherwise have. That's really what we're hoping for, is that we are getting to know another community and serve and give them something. As many church, I mean, I tell you, really, churches have led this for years and years. Of course, I mean, there are many mission programs that do very similar work. One of the ways we differ is that our programs are pretty much offered all year, so you don't necessarily have to wait for a given date. You just pick the date that you want to go. But we do work with a lot of churches.
Okay, so the other government's not involved at all either.
Well, here's when a government might be involved. So if we've got, let's say, a company or church or school group that wants to come and bring a whole bunch of people, sometimes we've had up to 250 on location at one time. So if we're building something like a library or a school or something larger, then there are going to need to be permits and authorizations
Yeah.
that are more involved. But we can't really work in countries where, the local communities really need to be in charge of whatever it is we're doing, not the government. And this can be tricky, in Cuba, for example, where, of course, we've had an embargo for many years. And the point of that is not to enrich the Cuban government so that we're not sustaining a communist regime. On the flip side, almost everything is run by the Communist Party in Cuba, and we cannot work with anything that helps the Cuban government. But what we can do is work with the Catholic charities there, or children that are on the autism spectrum, things like that, that are separate from the government.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
good.
each country is a little bit different in that way because of the structure. But yeah.
Hmm.
And governments, as you know, can move so slowly.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's paralysis. It would be hard for us to do anything if this was reliant on what a government structure often requires. And some governments are even less efficient than others, of course. But the way we do things, which is much more direct, we tend to be able to get something very concrete done very quickly. And that's really, again, leaning into something that we feel America has a beautiful tradition with in terms of a community coming together, deciding they want to do something, and then doing it.
Yeah, America was built
Yeah,
that way.
that's right. Absolutely. There's so many examples, whether again, it's, our firefighters, our barn raising, our churches, and we just have a very rich tradition in that. And so we see ourselves as an extension of that, really.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's really, a one size fits all type of government solution, is hard to find, right? So
mhm.
we are working in these cultural regional neighborhoods where the community knows each other, cares about each other, they're looking out for each other, and these are the kinds of environments where if they're wanting us there and they're willing to share with themselves, and they're cooking, we're playing games with their children, we're getting to know, then we may attend church with them. It's a kind of deeper experience than, say, just maybe a traditional tour where you may be going to churches and museums but have less interaction, getting to know how moms always have something in common with one another, in terms of worrying about their children and where their next food is going to come from, and
Yeah.
healthcare. So that common bond really touches off a magic component from our point of view that touches our volunteers
Oh,
without being dependent on any sort of government structure in particular. Because there are, whether you call them handouts or charity, these are things that can be tricky, and we want to really breed resilience rather than reliance. And
resilience.
so that's a really key piece for us. It's got to be community led.
So how do you get the locals involved
Yeah. So
in
what
that?
we will have usually, we get a bunch of requests. So we're in 26 countries right now, and a couple areas in the United States, and we will get communities emailing us asking us to send volunteers. That's how it usually starts. It didn't always. 25 years ago, we would go to communities. We go and see where are people already organized ethically in a really unified way that is safe. We're not putting, because we have so many families
Mm,
and students that go on our programs, we're not putting our volunteers high on ladders and operating heavy equipment and machinery. And we're not Doctors Without Borders. We're not handling bodily fluids. We're not in war torn zones, things like that.
mm,
So we need to ensure that the environment is super safe, that the community is going to keep carrying whatever project we did forward, right? So if we
mm.
built something, we don't want to build it there just for Instagram. We want to make sure that it's being used. So if they've already got the designs and they know what they want, they know how they're going to do it and where we can get the materials, then they're a really good fit. If they already know that their local community is going to show up and work alongside us, then we know that's a good fit. So that's really how they get chosen. We also, frankly, the programs that have been going on the longest and the most successful and have the most people also have things that people want to naturally just see. So, for example, people are so interested in the rainforest in Costa Rica that they're already drawn to go, or to see Machu Picchu in Peru,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, I think all of those pieces fit together in terms of creating what's going to be the most effective, compelling place to serve with the community. So that again, if it's a community initiative, we know its chances of surviving are much higher. If the local church is involved, all of the local community centers are involved, then we know. And what we will tend to do, because the community is working side by side with us, we will end up having dances, and we'll have a big, buffet where all the local communities have come to kind of show their thanks and community by giving back in that way as
Mhm.
well. So, and this is recognizable, I think, for a lot of Americans who've grown up in close knit communities. They see that, if you're in a community that cares for each other, whether they're meeting regularly over church or community center, or it could be a sports team. That this kind of fabric of a community tends to be some of the stronger pieces, the center, the focus of it. And in Costa Rica, for example, every community where we work, the community that defines it, there's a soccer field, a church, and a school. Those three things kind of bring everyone together. They're all right next to each other in the community, and everyone is connected to those. So that when we come and we're working on a project, whether it's in church or community center, we are part of that equation while we're there.
So
Yeah.
that sounds just wonderful. And have you ever heard of an organization called Shoulder to Shoulder?
Shoulder to shoulder, no, but it just even the name of it sounds like something a very similar spirit to what we
It is.
do.
It's very simple. I just did the podcast for them, and they kind of
I
they feed.
just lost. I can't. I just I lost you for just a couple seconds, but you just came back on. I don't know what
Okay,
happened. I'm so sorry.
that's right. No, they don't build things. They feed people
Ah, they feed people, right? Good.
in,
Yeah, yeah.
Zimbabwe, and it's really an amazing project.
No,
And
I'll
it's
have to
similar.
look them up.
Yeah, shouldertoshoulder.org.
Well, I will look them up. We meal making is a big. It's always a component of what
Yeah,
we do, and it's interesting. And we were the group in Kenya, out of Utah, that came with us, and the community had made a big barbecue for our volunteers, and we all show up, and the community's there to dance and sing. And our volunteers saw the community members. They were happy and dancing and singing, but they also saw that most of them looked like they hadn't eaten in a long time. And they decided on the spot that rather than eat it themselves, they gave the barbecue to all the community that was all there. And it was such a beautiful moment. We couldn't have planned that in advance, but it's that kind of that humanity of caring for one another without somebody making you do it. That wow, it really is. I think when I die and I'm on my gravestone, it's these moments that are really going to have some heft for me that I'll be thinking back on for sure.
yeah. I believe that history repeats itself,
Yeah, sure.
and the culture that forgets its history has no future.
Yeah,
What I
totally
believe.
agree.
What I believe. And here you got global repetition of history. When
Yeah.
societies ignore inequality or independency, the results repeat across time and borders.
I couldn't agree more.
That's your words.
Yeah, yes, I totally believe that. Yeah, and really, there I feel like we risk repeating any errors if we're not learning from what we've done in the past and looking at what has worked in terms of people having sustainability and pride in terms of projects. And when a community leads a project, uh, from my perspective, history has shown us that that is much more likely to have a long-standing lifespan for that project, for sure. In terms of learning from what's worked, and if we're not looking, then you're right. History is just going to repeat itself, and where do we look for our answers? We have a government, but so many private efforts by ordinary people that show up for each other have been able to create programs that will serve us all. And if all we do is wait for a big government solution or wait for someone to do something for us, we may be waiting a long time. And
Mm.
yeah.
Do you respond to and help with places like Katrina?
So here's been the issue for us is when there are natural disasters, we've got a couple of things constraining us. One is our liability insurance. So how we are be able to be insured is something that we really don't have control over. So when things like earthquakes and hurricanes come, we cannot get liability insurance as an organization, even though somebody individually might be, with the thought that you have to be specifically trained and able to move, heavy debris moving equipment, or the worry that if something's falling in earthquake debris, or someone could get hurt or sucked in under a hurricane debris, that we aren't considered qualified to do that because our volunteers do not come in with special skills. They really are coming with an open heart, open hands kind of
Okay.
attitude. And our foremen are teaching us, and we're working side by side with the locals. So we are not requiring people to be able to operate heavy equipment. And
Okay.
so we aren't, and that's really the main reason why we get asked that all the time. And I would love to do it. We just find unfortunately, liability seems to be the constraining factor for us.
Yeah. I was just curious about that
Yeah.
because that's I don't know of any other than FEMA, which is worthless.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know of a company or organization that really does do that.
I feel like so many communities and neighbors seem to be the ones doing the lion's share, right?
Yeah.
Which goes back to how when communities work together, how powerful they can be, because
Mhm.
agencies and government organizations certainly not always reliable, unfortunately. And that sweat equity that comes when families and neighbors and church members are working together, that really does seem to be able to move mountains. And I feel like whenever I see hurricane cleanups and earthquake cleanups, I feel like I'm seeing an awful lot of neighbors in there, before FEMA or anybody else shows up.
Yeah,
um,
they do. Yeah, you see it in every natural disaster. You'll see the local people just banding together, getting things
yes,
done.
yeah, that community initiative.
Spirit.
And it certainly ties people together too. I think the people who have suffered through those kinds of disasters, the bonds they feel toward one another,
Hmm.
in terms of helping each other, even in terms of safety and risk, then I feel like those communities are much more likely to look out for one another, from having had that experience
Hmm.
of themselves accomplishing something so meaningful and important as coming from a natural disaster. And
Yeah,
in Texas, we've certainly seen just the one of the biggest disasters we've ever had here this summer in
yeah,
Kerr County, and all of the community members who came out and are still putting in so many hours. Uh, yeah, and it's clear that their hands and their hearts are what is leading everything, for
okay.
sure.
Is that flood?
Yes, yeah,
That's
it
what I
was
thought
the
it was.
Guadalupe River, and 130 people died, most of them children, most of them
Yeah,
young, a lot of young girls.
it was really, really
Tragedy.
that we had a special service for at church.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
about we sent some money down. We sent what we do it in the Episcopal churches. We send money to the diocese, and the diocese sends the money down.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So
this
I
is this
know,
is another example of the churches that are looking out for the communities that can be so powerful.
yeah,
I mean, I could just think of so many examples when I'm growing up that so many of the initiatives. I mean, even here in Dallas, where I'm seeing, we've got all sorts of course, community cleanups and gardening and community gardens that have been put in. And in fact, it was interesting in 2019 in South Africa, we had put in a bunch of community gardens and a big community kitchen. And then, of course, when the pandemic came and we weren't allowed to travel or go anywhere, which is not wasn't good for our organization to have the
no, it wouldn't be.
travel restricted. I mean, it wasn't good for anybody. And but the community where we were serving, where there's a real problem with access to food, they kept those community gardens going because they had wanted them and they needed them, and they were churning out 700 meals a day with that community kitchen and those gardens. And so for people who go on our programs, they still go and see it, and they're a part of it, and they can see that kind of self-reliance continuing. And the kids are coming out, and the families who are working there. It's really special to see.
But you work with children too,
We do.
disabled children and various
We do.
disabilities or
We do.
whatever.
And we also work with, in Guatemala, we work with a lot of young single mothers. Many of them are, and you know, this points to the fact that there are obviously so many needs in the United States. So should say that our stance and philosophy is that people should be giving first and foremost in their local communities, and then to the extent they have time and availability and interest to look to other communities. And in Guatemala, there's, and I could go into the reasons why, but um, you know, they have very little access to education in the rural areas, and they might have a few elementary schools, but the middle schools are much further out. And a
Mm.
lot of the mothers won't let their girls go to those middle schools because they've got a job, they're working. And if the girls go unattended walking miles to school, they often come back pregnant. And they haven't been protected. And so that leads to a lot of young mothers with children and without healthcare and education access. So what they've done is most of these women have built homes over whatever trash they can find, whatever corrugated metal or plastic on the open earth. And so we'll go in and put in these big concrete foundations and more solid walls. And so when we're going and working alongside them, the kids and families that come along, they go home and they're super grateful for running water,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
in a way that they weren't before, that you couldn't have told them. Even watching a movie or reading a story, it just doesn't have that same impact as seeing a 16-year-old bring a little baby having to walk half a mile with a tub of water to come and boil and drink and wash in.
Yeah.
Somehow seeing that, then kids coming back feeling super grateful for the standard of living that a lot of us fortunately have.
Hmm.
Although we certainly still have needs, but it's kind of that nice awareness that can come. I think a lot of kids don't realize how much screen time they have at home, and you go someplace where nobody owns a phone, and it really in stark contrast,
Hmm.
you know.
I understand that. One of the big things for me that I've been working on now for a little over 2 months, and I'm still it's just time consuming more time than I really have, is human trafficking.
Yeah.
Do you get involved in that in any way?
So that's one other, you know, we tried for years, and here is what we learned. Um, you know, the drug trade, if you were to try and stop fentanyl distribution, you've got to have serious security resources if you're going to be confronting. Well, people who engage in human trafficking are even more dangerous. So
Agreed.
we cannot put our families and volunteers in harm's way
Mhm.
by confronting traffic. What we can do is try and prevent it on the front end, and I can tell you how we try and do that. And then on the back end, for people who have been trafficked and often abandoned, a woman who's had AIDS and has been abandoned and is no longer being in India, for example, we help in terms of trying to rehabilitate and find them a way of being independent and having housing and so on. And on the front end, what we've found are so you know, there are a variety of different ways we've seen this happen. In Southeast Asia, for example, if you have a really poor rural family and they've got a bunch of kids, somebody will often go to them and say, hey, we'll take your 11-year-old daughter and she can be a domestic worker in the city and she'll send all of her money back to you. And here's $100 advance. And whether they just want to believe or are deluding themselves or they know what's happening, that often happens. They go across the border, they're paid off at the border, and they don't have their passport. And at that point, they've lost all connection to anyone who cares about them. So, a way we try and prevent that is in any community where we're working, when there are families, if they're not able to feed themselves and they're that desperate, helping them to, whether it's create helping them grow the crops they want, helping them create water lines so that they've got a more sustain, so that they're less likely to feel the need to allow their children to be trafficked.
Yeah.
um,
Oh
so we
yeah.
really work on the front end or the back end, but we don't get in the middle of,
No.
you got to have machine guns when it comes to the
Zuka.
inside piece, you know.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, is the back end
Yeah.
and the front end. And me, and so I'm trying to get a thing going with our church where we can do that. I did a podcast with a gentleman who's been at it for 35 years in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, that's it's. I mean, we need more of it, obviously, and I think a lot of people, it's invisible to so many. They don't know that it's
Well,
happening, and it is experiences like this, whether it's through your church or through a service experience, where you get little windows into the kinds of things
mhm.
people face, people in need everywhere, whether it's in our home communities or in other countries. These needs that many people aren't even aware of. I
But
think
I
it's an opportunity to know the real beauties and real challenges of a
yeah,
culture. You know, if somebody's just going to Costa Rica, they might just think, okay, it's a beautiful rainforest, and it is. One of the real beauties for people who live there is how much time they get to spend with their family compared to in the United States. But one of the real challenges, maybe access to how far they have to go for health care. And Costa Rica is not the best example of that. They actually have a pretty good healthcare system, but I'd say most of the other countries where we work, while our volunteers have pretty easy access because we're paying medical insurance, a lot of the local communities really don't have access into that system. And as
mhm.
many problems as we have with our own healthcare system, it's interesting to compare it to other countries so we can see what are we doing that's good and what are we not doing, and it's easier to see it,
Yeah,
having that
it's easy to see
contrast.
from that angle. When
Yeah,
you're here in the United States looking at our insurance industry, which is really bad.
yeah,
And then you go down south and you look at theirs, you compare to ours, you go, we have the best in the world compared to
yeah,
these guys.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
And
Yeah. So relative.
yeah. And one thing I wanted to mention real quick is the human traffickers are involved in every single industry on the earth, not just the sex trade.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a scary business.
It
And,
is.
and again, invisible to so many people, I
It
think.
is.
And I'm not an expert because we're only seeing the front and the back end. But from what we see, it's scary because of how deep it goes.
Yeah. I wrote, like I said, I did that podcast with that gentleman, published it, and nobody listened to it, which really
Interesting.
upset me. So I wrote
Yeah.
a nasty article on apathy for the United States, being really apathetic in the world. Nobody read it,
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
just infuriated me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to, it's interesting what will make people kind of pay attention and listen to something. And the example I gave earlier about water, when we are mixing concrete in some of our communities, we'll have 10 and 11, even 5-year olds on our programs. And when they start, invariably they go and get the bucket and they fill it with water and they bring it back and it's sloshing everywhere, and they're seeing the mothers try and bathe their kids in a little bucket and boiling the water, and the second time they go and get water, those kids from North America are being so careful
Yeah,
with their water, and nobody had to tell them.
no,
There's something about seeing it. Seeing it made it hit their brain in a different way.
yeah. So they became more conservative and with the water and understanding that it was a very valuable commodity.
And what some of the things we take for granted, if you're able just to turn the water on to brush
Yeah.
your teeth, how easy that is to have never really given it much thought.
No.
Something that we can be grateful for.
Right. I have done several of these with self-help groups that get out and work with the public, or with a group of people doing some type of community work. There are a lot of them are in the United States, just in the suburbs, in the slums, and building houses and cleaning them up and helping them out. And what you're doing on a bigger scale is marvelous. It's a wonderful.
Well, we really do enjoy it. And I have to say, as I'm sure you know from connection to your church, is um, being connected in that way and giving and serving is a real source of joy
Mhm.
and empowerment of feeling like what we do matters as
Yeah.
individuals, and that caring about what's going on and being connected to it and trying to make a difference and getting that first spark of, oh my gosh, I can make a difference. I do matter. That what kind of confidence it can give to us if we've gotten stuck in a rut of if it feels like you're in a cubicle in a dog eat dog world and you don't feel connected to the larger humanity, and if you don't belong to a church or have that kind of powerful community, how you can lack joy. And so being a part of solutions isn't just effective and meaningful. I think it also is one of our greatest sources of happiness and fulfillment, naturally,
Hmm.
that we all, when we know we've done something that has done good for people, feel really good about it,
I
you
know
know?
I can vouch to some of that. I'm not at the scale. I was with the Red Cross for a couple of 3 years, and my health got so bad I couldn't do it. But yeah, coming out back off of a house fire, and you got 3 or 4 little kids and a doggy that's been injured, and the kids are just a wreck. The family's a wreck, and the house is destroyed, and just being there helping them,
Yeah.
just nothing more than comforting them, just talking to them.
Yeah.
I'm a therapist, or was before I retired. So just doing that part alone was just absolutely gratifying.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dale, I'm guessing those aren't things you'll forget either, those moments of if you've provided comfort to a kid who's seen
Mhm.
the possibility of their dog perishing, and you're there. I Yeah, these are the
Mhm.
moments that stay with us.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they stayed with me, and I'm not so happy I had to give it up, but my health just wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, I think everyone, gives where they can, and this is where I feel like it's so important. From our perspective, that messaging is it starts at home.
Yeah.
It starts at home. And to the degree you have that extra capacity, and it might be time, it might be resources. I don't know if you're, the five T's, the treasure, testimony, and so forth. It really depends on what you have to give. And not everybody at every time has all of those things to give. So I think it's always a picture of, okay, what do I have and how can I give? And it varies. It varies for everybody throughout their lives. You know what somebody can do. We have a lot of volunteers. They want to go on our Peru program, and we always have to say, look, if you have breathing program problems, this is probably not a good program for you. It's at 14,000 feet, and most people aren't used to that kind of altitude. And so just because you want to doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a great fit, right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't even go home.
Yeah.
It's 10,000 feet, and I can't
Yeah.
go home.
I mean, people underestimate. If they don't know, they
Yeah.
underestimate what that can do to a person. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's been an incredible journey here. Do you have a website?
we do. Our website is globeaware.org. We've been surprised that, social media has been a big piece where people actually follow and connect with us. Facebook and Instagram, we're, at Globe Aware. And we also have a podcast that will help people through if they want to know, for example, what it's like to go on a game count in Zimbabwe. You can listen to the episode about that. So we have all sorts of different
Mhm.
touch points and a YouTube channel, things like that. Even little tips on, hey, if you're any sort of travel in any of our 26 countries, we have a lot of travel tips. So if you're going to any of our program locations, even if you're not going with Globe Aware, we want to provide useful information so
Yeah.
that people know what to expect, a safety situation, things like that, what to pack, how to fill out the visa forms. We try and be informative in any
Yeah.
way we can.
What I normally do is take the website and type it in right across the forehead on the top. So each frame of this footage is there. They see it every frame.
Oh, shoot. I wish we had done that. Is it too late?
No, you can go ahead and redo it. There's a way to put the text in on when it's once you published it.
No. Okay. So good. I'm glad. Good. I'd love if we
Just
could do
get
that.
your webmaster to just type it in across there and
Okay.
republish it. That's all.
I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah, no, that's great.
That way, every time you have a frame, any podcast that you do, you put their website on there, and when you're editing it, that just increases the time you have to do to edit it.
Right.
Editing is a time-consuming mess anyway, but that's important, I think, because I want people to hear what you have to say and understand it, and then have a connection to you.
Right. Yeah, that's what we want. As many people as we can engage with, the better.
Yeah,
And we do try and tailor and customize with groups. So if they know, for example, that they are wanting, again, if they have uh, a child on the autism spectrum, and so they know they want to work on something for kids on the spectrum, then we will go out of our way to try and find projects that work really specifically with their sort of personal family mission statement, if you see what I
hmm
mean.
yeah, that's good. I like that. Good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have some time here. We're not out of time by any stretch of the imagination. We started early, so which I enjoy. I was glad you were here when I came on. I come on about 10, 15 minutes early just to be here. When somebody
Uh-huh.
shows up, you were already here.
Oh yeah, I'm always early.
So am
And
I.
it's funny, when people ask what our biggest challenges are in our program locations, one of the biggest is the cultural differences in terms of time and productivity
Mhm.
expectations. That's a big difference. And so our volunteers usually come, looking at their watches and wanting to be very specific. So we'll have our materials ready, our foreman ready, everything ready. But, if we're on a project location in Costa Rica, for example, and it starts raining, locally, most people will stop and have coffee. And so we have to navigate that difference between what our volunteers expect and what the local community is doing.
Yeah, pretty much have to do what they're doing. I wouldn't mind a cup of coffee either.
Right, right. Food is really that cuisine is a gateway to a culture for sure. And
It is.
I have to say that's as important as our service is. Our the cultural piece is really important to us. So we know if somebody's going on any of our programs on location, there are things that they want to see and experience. We know if they're going to our Cusco program that they want to see Machu Picchu. So, of course, we set aside the time to see all that. So, we do weave those leisure slash cultural activities throughout our week. And we have moments of reflection in the evening and cultural discussions in the morning. And I'll give you an example. In Costa Rica, for example, on a Monday, it might start with a discussion about how they don't use street addresses in Costa Rica. Your address wouldn't be 4719 Hillbrook. It would be the White House 300 meters south of the church, 2 miles south of Cartago. It's a paragraph. And it's so hard for people to imagine that a culture can survive in a modern age that way. And Japan does it too. It's strange.
That's
And
what.
then in the afternoon, we'll have discussions like, okay, tell me about a kindness, a kind act that you witnessed today, or something that you were grateful for today. And that thing might be like we were talking about earlier. Gosh, now I'm especially grateful for running water when I brush my teeth at home.
Yeah.
Or it could be, I was so grateful that a child came up and sang a song for me today. It could be any of those things, but that cultural piece is, and from our mission standpoint, half of what we do, not a small part. It's equally important. That connection to humans, getting to know them, getting to share the cuisine, getting to see the local things that have culturally defined it, but hopefully in a way that's less just a postcard view of a place and hopefully more of a deeper peek into it than it would be if they were just, a tourist taking photos, but getting to actually connect. And so, for example, we'll often cook with the local mothers on location to learn how they make a certain thing while we're tasting it, which is such a nice way
Yeah.
to because there, I don't know that there's a culture in the world where a mother doesn't care about what she's cooking for her family, where you're going to find that there are cultural cuisine traditions that are important and delicious and interesting, and
Hmm.
we should be experiencing it.
Yes. When you come back from say how long you spend in say Costa Rica, you bring part of that with you.
Yeah. So, okay, I should say our programs, with the exception of our Galapagos program where we're working with wildlife, they're all 1 week. They're 6 nights, 7 days. They're designed to try, hopefully, fit within a normal U.S. citizen's allowance for vacation time. And that was
Yeah.
one of the key components that began Globe Aware, is that prior to the year 2000, it was really hard to find regularly scheduled programs that a busy working American could fit into their lives. So when they go on the program, they come back in a week. It's very short term from our perspective, but they've usually finished something concrete and specific and had these experiences with the local communities, so that when they come home, they certainly, their souvenirs, instead of being, something they bought, there are these really pithy, meaningful moments that really do stay with you. And I'll give you an example. The first time I gave a wheelchair in Cambodia, I really thought that magic moment was going to be looking at the child's eyes that was receiving it, this, 3 or 4 year old. But it was looking at the mother that killed me. Seeing this mother who you could see in her eyes a change. She had expected that her child would never have mobility. And the look on her eyes of her child's future, mother to mother, that moment, that experience still gives me goosebumps when I think about it.
Hmm.
When I bring that home, that is, that's the forever shot for me.
Yeah.
That's it may have a short trip, but it's got a long tail. It
Yeah.
stays with you a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that your stay there will leave the same type of impression on the indigenous people there.
Well,
Did,
we will
did, did-
often meet in, yeah, yeah. So, for example, in Guatemala, we're working with Mayan people, and in Peru, we're often working with people who speak Quechua as one of their languages, the indigenous Incan languages. So we do. But our coordinators are bilingual, and the way our programs are set up, there's so much that's done even if you don't speak the language, because the kids are there and they'll toss a ball to you and you don't have to speak a language. Before you know it, you're interacting with the child,
yeah.
you know or we're making tortillas or we're playing games, so we do have people who are worried, gosh, I don't know the language, how can I go to wherever it is they decide to go? And these are really designed to be, you drop in and you don't have to know anything. We're there to make that go smoothly.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people who feel like they may not think of themselves as being very adventurous, once they've experienced this and successfully and safely gotten home,
Yeah.
without they it it makes them feel more adventurous and more likely to take on even more, even within their own communities. I
Yeah.
think a lot of kids these days, they seem, they're certainly not seeming very involved politically, and they're so involved in their screens and in social media and so on. And I
Yeah.
think, I don't know if some of them just don't feel empowered. They don't feel, maybe they don't think they matter. But there are moments in life that can teach you that you do, and this is an example of one of those times. And I feel like we need more of that. Like the fact that you didn't have many people listen in on the human trafficking one, an issue that's so important and hurting so many people, so the planet. How do you get people to care? You know,
I'm going to
and
let another nasty note.
yeah,
Soon as I get time, I'm trying to move and get along and keep up with this, and I'm frazzled.
busy guy.
Yeah. What is the one thing that you want my readers and listeners to take away from this?
Hmm. Don't hesitate to make a difference. Really, don't hesitate. You see somebody in need, if you know you've got the ability to do it, seize that while you can, because as you know, throughout your life, you're going to be able to give different things in different ways. And don't hesitate. I think, and in cities, this happens a lot where you might see somebody's hurt and people are just walking past and not helping.
Mhm.
But it's that community. You don't wait for the police and the ambulance to show up. Just being there to help one another without hesitating. And that goes for our programs too. I think we don't want to be fear based.
No.
We need to show our courage, and that's where our community strength comes from. And that self-reliance is really
Mhm.
built at that level of helping each other, because then somebody else sees you do it and they're emboldened to do it the next time. These examples, this role modeling that can really just build on
Yeah.
itself.
You show a child that you get involved, and there's a child standing over in the corner watching you, and he's going
Right.
that will stay with him.
That's right.
But
Yeah,
so even a young adult, a youth, and not just a child, but an adult, a child, a youth. Yeah.
that's right. It's more powerful than
Yeah.
than trying to lecture. My kids did Girl Scouts from the moment they could all the way through high school, and they got a lot out of it. But I feel like the moments where they learned the most were when they took the initiative in the later years, where you were required to create your own projects.
Yeah.
And
I was
yeah,
I was a Boy Scout for years.
yeah, and I don't have a sense for how much those have grown or not grown, and um, but those have shown us traditionally what they can do for kids, for leadership and empowerment, and a caring and community, which can feel like it's in short supply. Even though I
Mm.
do believe in the end that people are good, it can be easy to not feel that way with some of the behavior we see. So our youth deserve to have those good examples
Yeah.
and
Well,
get them off the screens, because it's such an
oh,
addiction.
worst invention known to man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's created a crisis in so many ways. I think people don't feel as connected because they think of everything as kind of two-dimensional.
Yep. And they don't really have friends. I remember as a kid, I had tons of friends. They were with me. We were outside playing in the
Yeah.
dirt, getting
Yeah.
dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just curated photos in a stream, people
Yeah.
looking to have perfect lives, but
Yeah.
actually, yeah, getting out there dirty and
Getting hurt, getting
yeah, getting
scratches like I
hurt.
still do.
Right. 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 Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Well, we got to go, Kim. I really want to thank you. This has been marvelous. I have thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm going to shut off the microphone now, so don't leave. Well, there it is.
Thank you for listening to the show. There are show notes and a place to comment at https:// coffee time again .lipson.com/website. He hopes that you liked what you heard and will tell others about him. Dale is attempting to get a following that both disagrees and agrees with him. He does not want yes men. If you disagree, wonderful. He is happy to have you here as a part of the Coffee Time Again team. Dale does not talk about the news of the day. He is attempting to give a history lesson that is just as important about what is going on in the headlines of today. Please do not hesitate to contact him. Just remember that Dale wants a clean show, meaning no cussing, name calling, yelling, or hate allowed. You can disagree with him and not be disagreeable about it. Support him and help keep this alive. https colon / glow.fm / coffee time again.